Katie Howard, and this is my daughter Haley, who's 7 years old. She started having seizures when she was just 6 months. And at 6 months old, she had an infection that led to 104 temperature that led us to the emergency room and a 2-day hospital stay to determine the cause, which they determined later was just a fever. Later on, Haley went on to have more seizures that were fever-induced, which are provoked, so that was not her diagnosis at that point. At 18 months old, Haley had another seizure that was unprovoked just from carrying her from the tub to the changing table. She stared off, and we called the neurologist, and he said that it was more of an epileptic type seizure. We went in and had her tested and evaluated. She still did not receive her epilepsy diagnosis till she was about 3 years old.
Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about VNS therapy. It's an implantable pacemaker-like device. Now, this device itself was indicated by the FDA in 1997 for patients with retractable epilepsy. Okay, so patients that are newly diagnosed with epilepsy typically go to a specialist epileptologist and or a neurologist and will be given the option of trying 1 or 2 medications over a period of time. Once that period of time is exhausted and the patient is still experiencing or having epileptic seizures, then different options are presented to the patient. One of those options is VNS, the other option would be epilepsy surgery.
Living in epilepsy as a parent is difficult, it's terrifying. You are worried every single second of every single day. When she's sleeping, we feel comfortable, or if she's had a seizure, we feel comfortable, which sounds crazy, and people think we're crazy. But at least we know that she's safe and she's medicated, and it's overwhelming. But it affects everything you do. Haley is very, very limited on what she can do. She gets triggered outside, she gets triggered by the sun, she gets triggered by overstimulation, hyperactivity. It's difficult. And right now I'm in a very huge struggle to find a school. And that's hard because even the schools don't understand. She can't go to recess, she can't go to PE, she can't go to lunch because it's too loud because she's photophobic. So she has sensitivity to sound, she has sensitivity to light. She's doing very good right now, but it's been very, very, very difficult.
Like I said, this device is a pacemaker-like device. It's indicated for patients 12 years and older, okay, that are experiencing refractory epilepsy, epileptic seizures. The device itself, the pacemaker is placed just like a cardiac pacemaker in the chest. There's a lead wire that we tunnel from the chest pocket up into the neck area where another incision is made, and the placement of the lead wire is placed on the vagus nerve. The procedure itself takes roughly about 45 minutes in an outpatient setting. So the patient shows up prior to the implantation, about an hour and a half. Surgery takes 45 minutes. Probably discharged roughly about 2 hours after, depending on the situation.
In March 2013, we went back in the hospital a year after her neurosurgery to be reevaluated. For surgery, she was ruled out as a surgical candidate because at this point her seizures are generalizing, so they're encompassing the entire brain, so that's inoperable. Going into the hospital that month, I said that if she was ruled out, we were going to go with the VNS and call it a day. Vagus nerve stimulator was mentioned to us probably 2 years prior, but it's, in my heart, didn't think it was the answer at that time. So we, as most people think we're crazy, went forward with brain surgery before the vagus nerve stimulator. Then, fast forward a year, and we went ahead and installed the VNS last March, and we didn't know if it's successful or not. Most people that have them say it takes a year or so to work, and I'm happy to report to date that Haley has had pretty much a seizure-free month, almost a year after the vagus nerve stimulator. So I'm hopeful that's the reason. It's tough in this world, but the vagus nerve stimulator attaches to her vagal nerve and goes into the brain. It goes off every 2 minutes for 30 seconds, so it basically keeps the brain clear. The vagus nerve stimulator has helped her developmentally because I'm assuming the seizures happen a lot, and keeping the brain clear, she can focus, she's talking, she's writing, she's amazing me every day. So I thank the vagus nerve stimulator for her development, for sure, over the last year. And hopefully now it's the reason for her seizure freedom. So that's the report to date. The vagus nerve stimulator gets stimulated by a magnet that's very high powered if she were to have a seizure. Copper, I mentioned copper can get the magnet for us to swipe the magnet to make, or the device to make it go off to interrupt that 2 minutes for 30 seconds interval and go off when she needs it. So I'm hopeful that the vagus nerve stimulators are an answer.
There are certain circumstances where patients have been through a lot before vagal nerve stimulation is even brought up. Pediatric patients as well as adult patients. I've had some adult patients that have been diagnosed with epilepsy and continue to seize on a weekly basis for 20, 25 years and just learned about VNS yesterday. And it's been out almost 20 years now. So, and a great example is Haley. Haley trying multiple medications, monotherapy, in combination, maybe a total of 12 medications, newer medications that have hit the market. She's probably been presented with multiple studies, opportunities to try new medications, because at the end of the day, I know families, and like Haley's family is trying to do everything they can to make sure that their daughter has the best life, and obviously the ultimate goal is to stop having seizures. But with her trying multiple medications in combination, let's call it 12, and then third surgery being VNS, so the placement of a vagal nerve stimulator. Outside of that, going for even in more depth surgeries that are more, it could have higher risks. There's a laundry list of things when we start opening up, the skull. So we're hoping and we're praying every day for Haley's, for Haley's VNS, and for her to do exactly what we're hoping and exactly what the literature shows, and her having a healthy life, and with her being as young as she is and having a growing brain, the stimulation itself, we're only stimulating that nerve, we're not touching the brain whatsoever. All we're doing is we're sending an electrical impulse to change the chemical composition of that nerve to stop her seizures. That's what we're trying to do. Okay, these are the two VNS generator models. Obviously, you can see there's a difference in size, but they are a little bit different. So the VNS Demi-Pulse would be first choice for pediatric. It's a smaller pocket, smaller incision. The same amount of power comes out of both, but with the larger model, which we place into, say, adult patient or a larger patient, you may get a little bit more battery life out of this.
Haley underwent 2 brain surgeries. One, to place a grid to monitor for seizures. Second was to hopefully remove the area of seizure focus. Unfortunately, those were unsuccessful, and we had to figure out another option. There's not too many options when it comes to epilepsy. So I looked into service animals, seeing many around town and talking to several people within my support group. So we decided to get a service dog in training. His name is Copper. He's a year-old golden retriever from Colorado. So in 2012, Haley had 2 unsuccessful brain surgeries, unfortunately, and we thought of the next option for her, especially being a parent of an epileptic child. Your biggest fear is that they'll have a seizure and you don't know about it. So in my heart, I had the idea to get a service animal so that he would be her best friend, and she would have a purpose to go to school, have some safety device to go to school, and it would make her become more independent. So we looked into companies. We fundraised for over a year and had many, many people, the outpouring of support, which is amazing. So we went with a company called Noel's Dogs for Hope out of Colorado. We have a year-old golden retriever that's almost finished with his training with me, and he'll go back to Colorado for 6 months and come back a fully trained ADA service animal. And at that point, hopefully, he will be able to detect Haley's seizures and let people know. He also can retrieve the magnet for her vagus nerve stimulator, retrieve medication, and obviously alert us, and even push 911 if necessary. So Copper's a very, very important part of our family. So I started a support group a year and a half ago, mostly because there was a need. I was asked by even the Epilepsy Foundation several times why my group is so successful. And I said, it's just, there's a need. There's a simple need in this state that wasn't there. And when we first started going through seizures, it was hard to feel alone. And I didn't want people to feel that way. So I simply started a group. So I started a group. It was just an idea. It started very, very small and grew very quickly once word got out. So now I'm happy to report at this day, as of yesterday, 65 members strong. Even reached out to families as far as Ecuador, which is crazy, and we have Ohio and California and other families, because I didn't want to deny families that opportunity to tap into a resource that's so phenomenal. Most of it's done on Facebook so that everybody has access to it, and we meet physically as a physical group. Used to be once a month, now it's been hard. Challenges and struggles get in the way. But we plan to get together for Christmas parties and little events, and when some of our families are in the hospital, we support each other, and it's just been phenomenal. It's a blessing, and it's great to provide that resource for people. How does our family stay so strong through this journey, as I choose to call it, through this condition? Number one is our faith, our family, our friends, our amazing outpouring of love and support, and my amazing support group that I created, which I don't believe. It's definitely not created by me, and I can't take success for that. It's the families that are in it, and passing it along to other people and bringing people in. It's just been great. I think that's my biggest source of support right there, is what keeps me strong, is that other families understand and they can talk to you about anything, and it's a great resource, because people don't understand what you go through and the struggles that you have, and it's been great. Haley's life moving forward, in my mind, I am hopeful that seizure freedom is always my number one. They highly doubt that that'll ever be, but we could prove them wrong. And Copper being successful and going to school with Haley, and Haley having an independent life. Haley getting married and having children and driving and living on her own, stuff like that would be